Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Roleplay on the Arc of Fire Gaming Network. I am your host, Arc. Today we have a special guest, professional voice actor, published author, and a member of the Air Force Reserves, Christian Michael. He's going to come here today, teach us a little bit about professional voice acting, and maybe teach us a little bit and help everybody kind of get acquainted with the profession of voice acting. So let's get right on into it. And hello. Howdy.
Hi, Art.
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm good. How have you been?
Man, I could complain, but who's gonna listen? It's been great. No, it's been great. A lot of retooling, reloading, changing. Streams going wonderful. Got two
Good.
streams going now. Yeah, two different
Really? You have
streams.
Arc, and then what's the other one?
Iron Bristle Studios. We got that rolling. You can see the link below. And yeah. So tell us a little about you, buddy.
Cool. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I
Yeah.
appreciate your heart that you're thinking of me. My name's Christian Michael. I am from Georgia, Southern boy, born and bred. Currently live in Denver. I've been blessed to do a great many things in my life. I'm on move number 60, I think. I've lived in 11 states, been to 36. I lose track. I literally have an Excel document where I have to keep track of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that in my life I've been able to do a lot of interesting things over what you might kind of say safe and normal things because I like the more interesting things. So
Right.
I've been able to do professional voice acting. I've written books, I've done web design, graphic design, I've sung in front of 40,000 people. I've been able to do a whole host of things. So I'm a huge proponent of if you have an interest and you want to go do something, don't wait, do it now. In fact, a recent quote I learned that has become my second favorite quote is don't rush, but start now. And that speaks volumes to me because I have done so many interesting things in my military career, outside of my military career. And it's really just about I've followed things that have interested me. And it's things anybody can do, including voice acting. Anyone can step in. They don't have to have the radio voice that you heard from the 1950s, that type of voice. Most clients don't even want that anymore. So whether it's writing books or doing voices or any number of other interests, it's been cool just to learn how anyone can do the things I've done. And it's something I just really enjoy. Keep it, I pepper it through my life. And so it's cool to also see you, remembering you long before this channel started, to see you finally diving in, not waiting, and it becomes more professional as you go along. You're learning more about how to do it. It's very cool.
Yeah, I would completely agree. It started slow with me, and it tailored. It just slowly built for me to the point where I just love doing it. I love assuming the role. I love going into it, and it makes me think, which I know you're gonna remember this, is the High Museum of Art. And when we went through the whole thing, speaking a Scottish accent, do you remember that?
Yes. Oh, yes, I remember that very well.
Yeah, it was definitely a honestly, I would say that was probably my first, you know what? I like doing accents because I started doing them because my father used to do them all the time. Monty Python and the Holy Grail, stuff like that. That's where I started. And then when
Classic.
I yeah, when you and I met each other and became friends, I was kindred spirit right there. So what's something else people need to know about you, my friend? I mean, we want to flesh you out as a person because people definitely want to know who you are, Christian Michael.
Well, at heart, I'm a traveler. I'm a storyteller. I grew up in school. School was boring. I hate school. I love learning, but I hate school. So I spent a lot of my days imagining I was in other places doing other things.
Right.
So one thing that has really centered my life above all the other things I've done, from voice acting and singing and military work, which I've even done military work in kind of a freelance style. Being a part of the Air Force Reserve, I do my minimum requirements, which is about 40 days a year. And then I go above and beyond and I go work for other units. And I do that literally like I'm freelancing. I have certain skill sets. I call up units, I call up people I know, and I tell them what I do. But more than anything else that I've done, there's always been one passion that's driven all others, and that's writing fiction.
Yeah.
And so the past 13 years, I've been retelling Peter Pan for adults in a 7-book fantasy series, not for children. I'm going to reiterate that every time I tell people. I'm like, let me just make sure you understand. There's a lot of language, there's violence, there's some sex, there's some really difficult situations. So unless your older teenager is an advanced reader like I was, because I was reading things way above my age group, this is not for just your casual reader. But I've been writing this for 13 years, and it's been a whole process because, as we've seen with Game of Thrones and all these other book series, they would write a book and release a book, write a book and release a book. Well, now we have a problem where they finished an entire TV show and he's still not done writing the series. What I did was I wrote all 7 books at once, and now I'm going back to edit them, and I had kind of an overall plan how I would restructure the story. But if your viewers are like me, they love to see hints in book 1, 2, and 3 that they don't know are hints. And then book 5, and further on you go, wait, was it that hinted way back here? And was it that done over there? And you get all these tie-ins. I love fiction where just like the MCU, you could tell they were planning for the end at the beginning. And
Yeah.
so that's huge for me. So I wrote all 7 books, and even though I'm still editing them, the final editing plan is done. And in fact, just last week, I finished this lovely young lady, Peter, which is book 2. Yes, it says book 2. Everyone says book 2. But that's because book 1 is a prequel, but it's an important prequel. You can't just like finish the whole series and then go back and read it. You actually need to finish book 1 before book 5. But this is out. This this has been my life for a very long time, and of course, it's still not done. But yeah, when you ask about what really drives me, I do voice work, I do all these other things, but this is my passion. And what's great is last week, week and a half ago, I finished reading the audiobook for this. So you were talking about voices at the High Museum with our friend, and I've been doing voices since I was little. I read through this book myself, and I didn't have to go through some big publishing company, didn't have to go through anybody else. There are systems in place where I read this book myself, recorded it myself, submitted it myself, and it's now available for to buy on Audible.
Excellent. Absolutely excellent. And that's, I mean, you guys need to, first thing, you need to look that book up because I remember sitting in a cafe with you when you were explaining some of the script with us and all of the plot details. And you were
That was
just
in
so,
Birmingham.
yeah, yeah. And you
Yeah.
were just so passionate about it. I had a moment there when I'm watching you describe this book to me where you're almost crying and
Yes,
you're
I
going,
remember that.
yeah, and you're almost crying, and I'm going, I don't understand why he's doing this, and I get it now because stepping myself into voice acting and then playing in game servers where I am the character, I am the physical, well, not physical, but the digital embodiment of the character that I'm playing, like Nathan or Aldous or Bert or something like that. You get connected with the character, and it takes an effort to kind of sidestep and go, you're not that character, but you understand their motivations. And that's the one reason I wanted to interview you, to be completely honest with you, is you have such a grasp on not just voice acting but fiction and character and development. Like, I know you don't really have much time to play games like I do, but if you did, you would destroy everyone online as the prime. I know I'm gloating about you a little bit, but you'd show the prime example of what it means to be the character while you're playing it, to role play the character. So I really appreciate you being here, man. And the next thing I kind of want to talk about on that note is the people who are hesitant. You know what I mean? Like the people who are kind of like, I want to do voice acting. I like the idea of it, but I just use my own voice, which is fine. But at some point, should they expand? Should they try something else? And tell us what your perspective on that kind of thing would be.
Well, as we were talking about before the show, you can't wait and hope you're ready to start. You won't be ready until after you start because you have to have the commitment to drive the action to get the information you need. I've ridden motorcycles for almost, if not 20 years now. And so many people come up and say, "Man, I wish I could ride a motorcycle. I wish I could have one." Well, what's holding you back? Doing my books. Oh, I've always wanted to write a book. Well, what's holding you back? Small business, whatever it is, because I've run several, I say run, I've started. I have failed many small businesses, but I have started them. I've started many things, but you're never ready. You're never just magically ready. If you want to do it, start looking to buy a microphone. You have to make the decision that you're going to do it. Good example. I went to Europe at the end of 2019, right before vid. And I had always said, "Man, I want to go to Europe." Now, I'd flown through Europe on my way to the desert for a deployment, but really didn't count. You didn't see anything. But I made the decision. You know what? I've got a gap coming up between work jobs that I have. It's time to go. I made the decision, started looking up tickets, started looking up resources, what was available that I could cut costs, but still see the things I wanted to see. It wasn't until I made the decision that I started taking the necessary steps to achieve it. And the story for me for voice acting is actually no different. So back in 2008, I had a full-time job in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was public communication type job. But I'd always been interested in voice acting. And so I went to Guitar Center or some other music store. I don't remember what I had specifically near me. And I started looking at microphones
Yeah.
and I started asking people behind the counter, okay, do I just get this mic or do you get that mic? And here's what I want to do with it. What do I need? And of course they tell me, but I'm also on the internet looking up what do I have to do. I started the research and then I found job sites where you could literally just sign up for a flat fee per year, create a profile, and start bidding on jobs. And that's how I started. It was really no more simple. I don't have any formal, to say I don't have formal voice training, like I was part of a volunteer choir my first 2 years in the military. But that was run by a fellow student. So we're not even talking. I mean, he was professionally trained, but that wasn't his job. He was a student like I was. I don't have professional voice training, but I learned as I went along. And if you were to listen to my first voice jobs, you'd probably cringe. I would cringe. You might be like, "Oh, that's not so bad." But of course, where I am today in the process, I'd be like, "Oh, that's awful and it's stilted." But if you're afraid that you're not good enough, well, you're not good enough. But you won't be good enough until you step in and really dive into that commitment. Make the choice that even if you get to a point and say, "I'm going to do this for a year, and if I don't get anywhere or I don't feel like I want to continue," fine. But you still have to make a commitment. And I made a commitment and just started doing everything I could to make that happen.
Very well said. Very well said. And that's kind of the exact same point I tell people. You may not be able to get to a guitar center, but I can tell you what, Amazon is a good resource to find stuff like that. And a little props to the person, or I should say the group that kind of educated me on the equipment was Alpha Gaming. No joke. Harris Heller. I watched his videos. He's a big time streamer, and he's like, use this mic, don't use this mic. He does honest reviews, and just start. And I even tell people, like, I have a headset right here that's got a microphone in it. Start there if you have to. Just start. Start the process. Same with my painting for Iron Bristle Studios. I was so hesitant. There's a hesitancy with painting a miniature. You're like, oh, that miniature sculpted so well. I don't want to ruin it. You can always buy another miniature. You can always buy something else to paint. Just paint it. Go watch videos. Just learn. Start somewhere.
Well, there was a I don't remember his name because I don't watch I've only kind of started watching YouTube recently, but there's a really famous YouTuber that there's even a video about how today he's got gorgeous backdrops and professional lighting, and he's interactive and he knows how to engage with the camera, and he's got a great formula for his scripts. But then the video, which is kind of like a micro documentary, goes back to his earliest videos, and they looked like they were done in some echoey room, which they were. They were done in this little echoey room. The decor was probably his bedroom. He didn't have anything else to show for it. But people would look at him and go, "Oh, I'm not as good as him. I can never start there." Well, you can't just take that sliver of where he is today without looking back to where he started and going, everybody starts at the bottom. No one's born ready to go, and they never will be. You have to dive in if you want to get anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd 100% agree. All the friends I game with, that's exactly how we started. It was minuscule equipment, Logitech cameras, which I'm still using one today, and then stepping up from there. I now have a Blue Yeti mic. I have a full gaming PC, a giant screen. It was a small steps into something like that. On that note, do you have any resources or anything you would recommend people who step into voice acting that's not going to cost them a thing? They can just go somewhere and get rolling.
So, if there is anyone interested in getting into voice acting, the first thing I would tell you is read everything. I mean, the back of the when you're sitting in the bathroom and you got to pull the bottles out from under the sink because you're bored, and if you don't remember those days, you're a lot younger than I am. When you're sitting at the kitchen table and you're reading or you're eating cereal, read the back and read out loud the back of the box. Read books out loud. Now, if you don't want to do characters, don't worry about trying to read characters. You don't want to do audiobooks? When I say don't read books, don't worry about trying to get perfect books. Try to read the things that interest you. So if you want to be documentarial, do documentary. If you want to do voices, read comic books. I read a lot of comic books out loud growing up and a lot of just novels. I would read this character this way and oh, this one's got a British accent because he's not quite refined. This one's a rough and tumble scout. He's like an elf, not an elf, a dwarf or something like that. And then you've got to soften your voice for the women and very highbrow ladies speak very softly, whatever that voice is, because I had to create a million of them for this book. And let me tell you, I had to create a list that said every character, this is male, gruff, Brit, French, German, Native American, whatever it was, but read everything out loud and start listening to syllables, words, and phrases.
All right.
Those are the three ways to read things because you're going to have a pentameter, a flow, a rhythm for how you read things out loud. And we don't hear it. It's in the radio, it's in advertisements, it's in, YouTube all around us. Voice actors voice everything. People don't realize there was a real human behind the voice on Google Maps, but they cut her up and made her digital, but there was still someone real behind that. When you hear any sort of produced audio, there's going to be a pentameter to it, and you need to start learning yours. And you're not gonna learn it right away, and that's fine. But the pentameter is the difference between welcome to the radio show to in this book we will be discussing how to repair your car or something a bit more NPR-ish and you're NPR-ish and you're talking about geopolitical, sociopolitical elements. learning how to change that pentameter to match your audience, to match the content, to match the energy of the content you're creating is vital to producing anything. So that's where you start. Read everything. Now, if you already have a passion for reading things out loud, you're already moving there. On the technical side, if you want to start, get something, you need scripts. Like, okay, I can read things, but how do I read and practice scripts? edgestudio.com. I believe it's .com. Maybe it's .net. Just type in edgestudio.com into Google and you'll find it. Great voice acting resource site. I want to say it was there when I started. And if it wasn't there when I started, it wasn't long after that it popped up. There's just archives of free scripts you can download and just practice. And one thing that's vital for a voice actor to have is a demo. 30-second demo, 1-minute demo. It's supposed to display the different types of things you can read. And you want to have that on every profile, website, whatever you're using to advertise yourself with. You need a demo. Using scripts from Edge Studio help you create a demo if you've never done anything else. So it's my first stop that I recommend to everyone. Go to edgestudio.com. And they also have other services that can help develop you a demo with you and process it for you, that kind of thing. Start there. So that's you're learning to read, you're getting your scripts. When it comes to microphones, unfortunately, there's no free way to get a microphone. You have to start somewhere that has, you can try to use the microphone built into your laptop. Everyone will know it. And to be perfectly frank, if you're not willing to invest money in starting this, you're not going to get anywhere. Now, there are some really inexpensive ways to start on my blog, royalvagabond.com on, oh no, I moved that. I have resources. I'll give it to you when we're done. There's some links to some articles that I have a $130 setup that you can use to start voice acting and that I have used for many years while I've been traveling as much as I have been to still produce enough quality for my voice projects. And so you don't even have to invest hundreds and hundreds of dollars to make this happen. It really like $150, $200 and you can be off to the races. So that's the hardware. And the hardware is so much simpler now than when I started. So when I started, there were no USB microphones. Everything had to have the microphone, the interface, and then the connection to the computer. And that's you had to get an advanced connection so that it could hook up USB to your computer, things like that. Or there was a separate recording device, and then you took the SD card and slipped it into your computer and then processed it. Today, it's so much easier. I have a computer. I have what's called a blue icicle, which is, it looks like a fat cigar, and that's all the interface I need. The Blue Yeti you use goes USB direct into the computer.
Yes, it does.
It's amazing. And one day we're going to have wireless that are as high fidelity as the less expensive stuff. So if you can invest $100 and $200 in your equipment, you've got a great starting point. Right now, I have a more expensive mic. It's an Audio Technica. I also have a Rode NT1 that I keep. But seriously, for under $100 or under $200, you can get started with quality. Now, the third part is the software. I have a Mac, which means I have GarageBand. What did I start with when I started voice acting? GarageBand. It worked in well enough for me, and I got a number of jobs using it. Now I have migrated to Adobe Audition. It's a very powerful program, and I'm still learning new things about it every day. But I recorded my entire audiobook using this software. Had some consult with some professionals that I've I've become friends with over the years and have learned from,
Hmm.
and they've taught me better how to, and that's the thing is that when you start getting into the industry and you start building friendships, it's not just being out there by yourself. You've got people you can call and go, "Hey Ben, hey Devin, hey John, I have this problem. Do you have a fix?" And maybe they don't, but maybe they can at least go, "I don't, but check this resource. Go there."
Yeah.
And some of the best training I've gotten on Adobe Audition has been on YouTube. I went on YouTube and typed things to know about Audition. Now, I had used Audition off and on for a couple of years, and I pay 50 a month 50 or so a month, I think. The price could be off. I never remember numbers well. I pay 50 a month for the Creative Cloud suite. So that comes with it. But they also have Fruity Loops, which is a Windows program. There's Audacity. There's a number of other programs because I use Macs that you can use. I know Fruity Loops is free and people have used it.
Yeah.
So it's you're learning your skills, getting your hardware, and getting your software. Those are the basics because you could do jobs for people one on one, or you could go to where I went when I started, where I started with voice123.com. The one, two, and three are digits, and you sign up for a profile. It's a job site. So you sign up for a profile, you load up your photo, you put your demo, remember that demo I told you about, write in your description, and then you start. And once you fill out your profile, so you say, I'm female, male, I'm a young child, young adult, adult, middle aged, older, depends on what the website has. You fill out your profile and then you start getting notifications. So you have voice actors and then producers. Producers are posting jobs. And then if that job, based on the description and their elements, say, okay, I want an African American male, age 40, uh, with maybe a deep voice, maybe a high pitched voice. If that matches my profile, I get a notification on my phone. And it may be an email, it might be through the app. I will record a quick section of their job. Usually they'll put a portion of the script. I'll read 15 to 20 seconds of it and then bid based on the price. So they may say, I'm willing to pay between 3 to 500, 500 to 800, whatever it is. And then you bid and you try to compete with others. That's how I started. That's how I still get the bulk of my work right now is I'm on voices.com, and there's also a number of other websites, and you just learn to bid. And then you start building relationships where I recently ended a 3 to 4 year relationship voicing curriculum for a company out of Texas. Every month they would send me their curriculum. I would voice it and send it back. And it was profitable for me, and it was a great experience, great learning, helped me refine what I needed to do. But that everything you do in this industry, just like what you do in yours, you're always learning and always refining and always getting better.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that as well. A lot of people they don't want to spend the money on Adobe. I have taken up DaVinci Resolve. If you go to Arc of Fire Gaming's YouTube channel, all of my videos are done via DaVinci Resolve, and that is a free program. And they have sub programs within it, like their Fairlight program, which helps for audio editing. You can start there. I recommend starting there. Adobe's great, don't get me wrong, but DaVinci's free, and they've done major mainstream movies with Adobe or with DaVinci Resolve, and I highly recommend that one. And I've heard of Fruity Loops before. Actually, somebody I've interviewed before has recommended that one to me, Mr. Alwa Beats. So yeah, and he's a music designer, and that's what he uses. So absolutely, there's all these avenues you can take, and don't feel scared to ask somebody, even somebody who you think is super high level. Most people are willing to help, and if they're not willing to help, you don't ask. They shouldn't be talking to you anyway. Um, yeah, I mean, and we've heard some of your voices just previous. And what are some of the other voices that you like to do that you've used these technical resources to hone those skills in and give examples? Has anybody ever asked you to read anything that's like not in your normal accent? Has anybody ever gone through and you know asked you to read something in a British accent because they like your British accent or anything like that?
Well, I've been paid once for my British, and I've had different seasons of working where maybe I would turn off British because I didn't want to do it, so I didn't get any jobs. And when I say get jobs, I mean like I was solicited just through the system. One job I bid on with British I did get, which was an advertisement for Kerber's Fine Jewelry, and I think that's a regional jewelry store in the eastern U.S. because this was actually based out of Kentucky. I did a British accent. It was for Kerber's Fine Jewelry, and it was actually at the time that the royals got married. It was Kate and who's the prince and the princess? Not the ones who just got married, Harry and what's her face who came back to the States.
Philip? I don't know.
Uh, anyway, he's bald and she's pretty, and they were getting married. And I did Kerber's fine jewelry for that British, and that's the only foreign accent I've done that I've gotten paid for that I can remember.
Yeah.
Mostly because I would focus on the documentarial. Honestly, it can be easier. One of the drawbacks, and I'm going to bring this up, one of the drawbacks about voice acting, and I think it's similar to Hollywood, is it's somewhat of a meat grinder. You read through the description, you get to see the script, you bid on the script, you might be able to produce what the producers want, but they're not looking for someone who might get there and then bring them closer. They're looking for the person who's closest. So you really have to try to figure out, how do I get, by reading this, how can I dime down as close to what I believe the producer wants the first read? Or maybe I'll put in two reads where maybe something's manly and I put a southern accent to all. I did one this morning for a tool company, and I was just bidding on it going, the tool company for Americans and their truckloads. Well, I might put a second read and go, for Americans and their truckloads. It's still deep, but it's not Southern. I've done a Southern accent, a mild Southern accent for a land selling company out of Wyoming, but then I'm from Georgia. So getting the Southern accent right or a rural accent right is not difficult for me. They are fun. I'm actually kind of hoping that the audiobook I just produced might create a few bids for people going, I like all his voices. And they're, all the voices in my head have now migrated to the outside of my head.
That's wonderful. I know you do a wide variety of them, and honestly, like I said in the beginning, my start was doing the Scottish one at the High Museum of Art with you. I think of you as the prime example of, all right, I'm messing this up. Like, I know one of our mutual friends, she always calls me out on, you started Irish, but you went into Scottish because she knows Irish really well. So, do you have any prime examples or techniques to keep you in an accent?
So I'll be honest, most of my accents come from movies. I think
Right.
that's where most of ours come from, unless you have a family member who's actually from that place. So if you can watch a movie where you know the accent is as accurate as possible. And of course, I learned Scottish by watching Braveheart. Now, Mel Gibson was born in the States, raised in Australia, came back to the States. I may not listen to his Scottish accent, but Liam Gleeson, not Liam Gleeson, Brendan Gleeson, who plays Hamish, the big redheaded gentleman, is from Ireland. Well, if you know anything about BBC and actors over on that side of the water, they have to become very good at accents. I'm going to listen to him. Or I'm going to listen to David Tennant, who is from Scotland, just straight up. Uh, Connolly, Billy Connolly, brilliant Scottish actor. Listen to him. So if you want to get that Scottish right, James McAvoy, watch movies based in Scotland, listen to them, how they roll their R's. And so if I'm doing an accent, now if I'm tired, I will wander through accents. But if I need to get it right, one is I'll practice it. So if I had to read something and I had to get it accurate, I'm going to read it over and over again. So I'm not getting too tired and going, wait, I think I softened that too much based on what I'm trying to read.
Mm.
Finding a way to have something to go back to that you can listen and go, okay, how did he say this consonant, this vowel? Wait, the British transition. So good example, Cockney. They don't say the th, they say the th. So we're going to go through that. We're going to go over there. We're going to go through those blokes, and we're not going to stop until, So they don't say the they say the f. Learning how to transition. Certain British will have the R in it. So I'm going to go get Peter. Okay, that's an upper. But some of the words, and I'll be honest, I can't think of one at the moment, they use the R in the middle of a transition depending on the consonant following it. So if you're unaware of that, it will make you stand out. But when you listen on the right movies, the right television programs, go to the news and look up Scottish news and then listen to them talk. So if you have to do a particular accent, you want to get as close as possible with the appropriate tone for the character. If you really tried to sound purely Scottish, no one would understand you. Uh, my girlfriend talks about going to Edinburgh, and she says, they were all speaking English, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. So for us, like David Tennant, if you know David Tennant,
Of
Doctor Who,
course.
he did Scrooge and DuckTales, which is an
Harry
amazing remake
Potter.
of the original Harry Potter. He doesn't sound that soft Scottish in real life. He's much more Scottish. He softens it for his characters. And that's something that goes back to voice acting. Yeah, they're paying me to do a British accent. But maybe it's not cockney. Maybe it's not too highbrow. They're rolling their R's and it's very fancy, noble, and such. It might just be a typical London that you might hear, where you get a little bit of nasal in the nose, and they're not trying to be very posh, but they're still softening their words. It's non-rotic. You have to read what are you selling? And when I say selling, I don't mean you're selling a product. You're selling information. You're
Yeah.
selling a documentary. You're selling David Attenborough. The birds start to land on top of the tree, and the tree immediately rolls out from under them. These are amazing times. Whatever it is, you have to know what you're delivering and how you're delivering it to get that right tone, that right accent. Go back to the source and then soften it and then adjust it for what you're working on.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It makes me think like the one piece of advice I always give people, because I'm not 100%, like for me you're like tiers above. I always tell people you want to do a European accent, mostly in the British, Irish, Scottish. Stop acting like you're asking a question at every sentence. Just start there. Just like we were talking in the beginning, you got to start somewhere with voice acting. A lot of Americans, when they do a British accent, they always sound like they're asking a question every single time. They raise the pitch right at the end. And I'm like, you got to stop doing that. You sound like a really bad infomercial. So I have a challenge for you, if it's okay with you. Do
Okay.
you think you could choose an accent and read the jacket of the back of Pan?
Sure.
Let's take a listen, and if you decide you want to change, maybe mid paragraph or something, let us know what you're changing into. So, whenever
Okay.
you're ready, whenever you're ready.
My name is Peter Bailey, only son of the Lord of Eden, William the Pen. We've been hunted by the nationalists who seek to unify Pangaea using ancient powers they have no right to wield. Under threat, we fled to the ancient home of the Pans, what the world calls Neverland. It's my responsibility now to serve the Great Self, to return the First Powers to their rightful places and restore balance between gods and mortals. This is no bedtime story for children. It will only bring them the nightmares I already fight. It's my responsibility. I am the Pan.
Good God, I loved every second of that. I'm betting everybody else is loving it right now too. That was
Funny story, a
astonishing.
very quick funny story for you. So, one of my old jobs, we'd have a lot of people retire out of the building, and so I ended up narrating a lot of the retirements. When you say narrating, you're the MC. You're bringing their boss on stage. The boss gives a few words, then you invite the retiree on stage and their spouse, but you're just kind of handling the ceremony. And if there's like an award, you read the award, things like that. I once had a woman during practice. I would do the accents for fun, and everyone knew it was for fun. But she had been working for 30 years. She didn't give two snots about high decorum, as it were. So she was like, "Hey, would you do my retirement accent or my retirement in different accents?" And I was like, "I'm willing to do that if the boss, the big boss who's officially retiring you, says it's okay." Because it can't sound like it was my idea. It wasn't my idea because I'm gregarious. People know I have fun, but it can't be for
You?
me. I
No.
know me. Well, she asked him. He said yes. And so For an hour long, for maybe a half hour ceremony, I did about 8 different accents based on what I was reading. And the only thing I didn't read in an accent was I think there was a letter from the president thanking her for her long service to the U.S. government. But other than that, like I did all these different accents, and everybody except for one person who was a good person. She was just more into the straight decorum attitude. Everyone got a kick out of it, and it was so much fun to do. But I had to practice to make sure that I that they were accurate and correct the way they needed to be before I got started.
Man alive. Golly. Not only is he a voice actor, he's a good storyteller, just like our friend Garrett. Uh, um, so that leads me into, do you have any techniques, like voice techniques, warm up, something besides looking at an example that people could take home with them tonight to say, okay, I can use that. This is a start. You have anything like that you could share with us?
I'll cover two quick things for you. And the first one is I'm going to reiterate what I covered a little while ago. Syllables, words, and phrases. These are what drive the delivery of information. Devin, pause it. I think I just heard someone knock on my window.
Unpause.
Absolutely. I have two things I'll cover with you. First is what we already kind of mentioned earlier before: syllables, words, and phrases. Understanding how these interact with each other is what allows you to deliver the message the way it needs to be delivered. It's like, how do I massage this into shape? How do I hold this? How do I grip the content? So while I'm reading something, it's not just trying to read it out loud and run roughshod over the words, because when a lot of people start reading, they rush, they get way too fast because they think, well, I got to get the words out. That's not what you do at all. In fact, most advertisements, audio things you hear, they're a lot slower than normal conversation. And if you listen to my voice, I'm beginning to create more emphasis in each part of the word. Some words I slow down completely and may separate. Sometimes I may roll over them, but each syllable is given attention. Then each word is also given attention. Not to say that there aren't times where the words will run together, but often there is still a discernible separation in how I'm delivering. But also, you're going to phrases. So when you go back to English and you think of John got up and walked into the kitchen, then he turned around and returned to the living room. Each phrase is given its own identity as I move forward. Syllables, words, and phrases. So as you read whatever content you're going to read, whatever narrative, whether it's from the back of a book, inside of a book, a script from
Cereal
a
box.
studio.com, whatever you're reading, start paying attention to the syllables, the words, and the phrases. The second thing I'm going to bring up is understanding your voice better. If I need to do a deep and gravelly voice, doing it at 7 p.m. or doing it at 10 a.m. or doing it 3 a.m. will never sound as good as that. You know, when you wake up and your vocal cords are all warm and you have this really gravelly voice to you. If you have to do a gravelly job, do it the very first thing in the morning, because then you're going to get that deepest gravel. If you need to have a higher pitch, don't do it first thing in the morning, because then you're going to be like, I'm a higher pitch, but your voice is still too low. And everybody's voice is a little different, but it's about learning when you sound. I've learned that if I need to get not a deep rumble, but a hard gravel, I have to talk like this for about 5 minutes. And what it does is it super constricts the vocal cords, and then it creates this gravel when I use it afterward. And I get this nice, like right now, it doesn't sound like a nice gravel. But when I've done that for about 5 to 10 minutes, I have this nice gravel that I could use for a bad guy or for a hard smoker who's trying to tell people to quit. Whatever it is, whatever the job it is I'm doing, understanding how your voice works and how your voice reacts, and then accommodating that. That's important. No, actually, I'm going to add one third thing, which is super important. Your brain ignores more sound than you realize. If you just ate food and you talk with some, or you're talking with someone, they don't hear all your smacking, and neither do you. Don't eat right before you do a voice job, and start listening. When you start recording, start listening to what your voice sounds like at different times of day, when you've just eaten. When you eat, all your blood rushes to your stomach, and you sound drunk when you're reading, and people don't realize that.
Huh.
So I never record while I'm eating, right after I've eaten, both for the mouth noise and for I will literally sound like that. I will literally roll over constantly and not realize it. So those are the three things I'm going to leave you with to get started. So syllables, syllables, words, and phrases. I said, yeah, syllables. Learning about your voice, and then paying attention to your body. Those are the three starter things I would say pay most attention to as you start recording.
Gotcha. And that's voice acting 101. Well, my friend, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being here today, and everything you've taught us. I'd love to have you back for more voice acting lessons 102 and such things like that. As well as I'd like to talk to you about some of your authorship and other such topics. So, on that note, tell everybody how they can find you, where they can reach you, and other things like that.
Well, first, thank you for having me out on the show. This has been absolutely great. If your viewers are interested in the books that I brought up before, this is Peter. Yes, again, it says book two, but this is the first book you can buy. Just make sure, and it has instructions about book reading order. Legendofthepan.com is how you can get this book. It's all through it's available ebook, paperback, hardcover, and on Audible, but you can start that journey at the website to make sure you find it. I've also written a little bit about my voice acting at royalvagabond.com, which I go through some of my travels around the world. And I've talked a little bit more about my voice acting at scrollmedia.com, which is my company.
Excellent. Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much. And, sir, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for being here. We're going to do this again. More about voice acting, more about your books, because by the time we get to a book interview, people have been have time to read it. They'll check the links and all that kind of stuff. So, um, we're going to sign out. Thank you for joining us on another exciting adventure of Arc of Fire Gaming Network and Behind the Roll interview with Christian Michael. Later, Tater.
Thanks, brother.